Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Sulk stream. I am your host, the Incredible Sulk, and I hope you guys are having a great day. I hope you guys are doing good. I hope everyone out there is well, being happy, sporting the six-pack for the summer that's coming up. It's getting warmer. It's getting warmer, and I'm happy about that. The time changed. It fucks everything up, so that sucks. And yet we do that every 6 months. Every 6 months we do that. Every 6 months. I don't get it. Why? Just to inconvenience us? Just to increase the rate of car accidents in that week? 2 weeks a year? That actually goes up. The rate of car accidents go up after daylight saving time. Twice a year. So, but there's no real measurable gain, especially in a 24-hour world that we live in currently. We're not farmers anymore. We have no need for the extra hour of sunlight, if that's even it. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to me, except for it ruins my sleep schedule, and everything has to be shifted back an hour. So thank you. Thank you, Benjamin Franklin, for thinking up such a great idea. And here we are. It feels like summertime. It does, because of the time change. Anyways, guys, tonight we're doing lost stories. Being lost. Staying lost. Dying lost. I know this is not the appropriate music for dying alone in the woods, but hey, why not? You know, if you're gonna go down, might as well go down boogieing. No? Okay. Anyways, guys, yeah, people lost in various, it's a collection of stories. There's a few stories either in the woods or in a cave or what have you. I'm sure it's going to incite some sort of claustrophobic emotion into you. So get comfy, get cozy, get a nice a helmet with a little lantern on it, and maybe a GPS locator. Maybe tell somebody where you're going. That's always a good idea. You're going out into the woods, tell somebody. Anybody. Make a Facebook post. That's a really good idea. And don't just periodically do that. You know. Or do whatever you want. I don't care. It's your life. Anyways, grab a bottle of water. You're going to need water. You're going to need water. And, you know, maybe some spelunking gear. Other things. Because we're going to get going. If you're working, keep working. If you're driving, keep driving. And, yeah. Welcome to this, what is it, Tuesday? My God. Feels like the week has been a million years long. But that's just me. Anyways, I'm the Incredible Sulk. This is the Sulk stream. And this is called The Horrors of Becoming Lost. Enjoy.
One of my favorite quotes.
It's a real vibe change, isn't it?
Sagan.
I like the vibe change.
For all its material advantages,
the sedentary life has left us
edgy, unfulfilled. Even after 400 generations in villages and cities, we haven't forgotten.
Yeah, we kind of did that on purpose, by the way. 400 generations living in villages and cities where we walked around and like socialized on a day-to-day day. These days we're very isolated. Everyone gets in their car and then you don't like bump into people on the street. No, you're all in your car and then you go home. You drive into your garage, right? You close the garage door and then consider leaving the car running until it's just over. But no, then you turn the car off, you chicken out, and then you walk inside to your house without ever stepping outside of outdoors the entire day. You get in your car, in your garage, you drive to another parking garage, you walk from that parking garage into your office, and then you just do that over and over. Instead of walking around and smelling things. People don't smell things anymore. Just the stink of their car.
The open road still softly calls. like a nearly forgotten song of childhood.
Ardenshire, David.
We were wanderers
Background noise. Scott.
from the beginning. We knew
Dirty
that
Brown Soul,
exploring
what's
our
up?
world involves risk, mortal danger even. But in the name of science, ego, sheer curiosity, we'll ignore the risks and we'll do it anyway. Tonight,
Kind of
I
about
want to
the
tell you
risks.
3 stories, not of great explorers, but of ordinary people who came face to face with a terrifying reality. Out there in the wild, it can take surprisingly few mistakes.
All you need to do is be really stupid for a second. But then mistakes compound on top of mistakes. Like you took a wrong turn and then you got really tired and then you got too tired to turn back, so you decided to keep going. It compounds on itself. You gotta stop making mistakes. That's the thing. Also, and tell people where you're going and then stick to that.
Sometimes just one. To become completely
Oh, that guy
lost.
drowned.
In a matter of minutes, we pass into a near blizzard. The wind-whipped snow swirls
The Call of the
eerily
Mountains,
above.
it's
The
called.
temperature drops 10 degrees in a few minutes.
10 degrees in a few minutes. Ugh.
His name was Hans Seiler. He was a husband, a father, a teacher, and an experienced mountaineer. He was also
He's
a liar.
funny looking.
And on the 15th of April, 1954, 10 schoolboys and 3 teachers were about to accompany him for a hike as part of their 2-week school trip to the Austrian Alps. They had very little idea of what they were about to endure, and even less that the whole thing would be documented on camera. The pictures that you're looking at now
This is gonna get
would be their
grim.
last. And when they were finally published, they would leave the world stunned. How was it possible to become so lost on a routine hike? And perhaps more importantly, what kind of teacher would do something like this?
Hey, Carrie.
I'm getting ahead of myself.
I
so-
sent Jess your love. You said that in the Daywave chat, and I was going to respond, but I figured you were gone by then. But I did that. So,
Let's start at the
and
very
then she said, "Aw, I love her."
beginning.
The
The morning of the hike
because I'm a messenger. That's my job these days. That's
wasn't
what
a
I do.
morning like any other. In fact, according to those that were there, the atmosphere was electric. The night before, the boys, aged 14 to 16, had been special.
God, people were just uglier back then, weren't they? Look at this one right here, and then obviously the teacher over here. And then, do I call people ugly too often? No, I don't call people ugly enough. I should really pump up those numbers. I'll be sure to do that. Ugly, 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 ugly. Ugh. Ugly. Those are all the standouts. But there's a good-looking chap right there. He probably is their leader.
Actually selected by Hans based
Or
on their
he's dead.
physical fitness for
That's
a
what it is.
day-long hike up into the nearby
They're British, yeah.
mountains. The route that Hans had chosen for the group was a tough but well-established 14-kilometre hike that would offer unforgettable views and a chance for both the teachers and boys to challenge themselves.
Krippenstein Volt.
These kids were only 3 days into their 2-week-long trip to Obertraun, a small but picturesque village located in the Austrian Alps. They travelled just under 7 hours from their small German town of Heilbronn, which most of the boys had never even left. This trip was supposed to be the trip of a lifetime.
I'm sorry, the trip of a lifetime, and you're going. That's like me driving to Georgia. Maybe not even that far. The trip of a lifetime is like 100 miles away. That's the trip of a lifetime. Nobody ever leaves anywhere. A trip of a lifetime, you're going to the other side of the planet, or maybe that's just me. I don't know. At least leaving. It is leaving their country, right? But it's just like, it's so close. You could hop a train, you're there in an hour. These days, I don't know. Back then, they had slower trains.
So far, it absolutely had been. They'd hiked,
Maybe just, they didn't travel as much.
they'd climbed, they'd laughed. It was all
Oh, prisoner pajamas. I like
especially
that.
exciting because it was a chance to get away from a town that was still recovering
Scott
from
says,
the
now I remember the 50s. Yeah, if you guys don't know, Scott's from the silent generation, and he's 93 years old. Congratulations to Scott. So, you know, wish him a fast approaching death.
Ravages of war. Plus, mountaineering has always held a strong ideological place in the German collective imagination. At the turn of the century, there was, in fact, an entire German film genre dedicated to finding oneself on the mountain. The Berg film. They'd waned in popularity.
Carrie C says the mass hotties? What is that? The mass hotties? What is the mass hotties? No, I mean, I would guess that the hotties were in Japan, but that was in the 40s, and that lasted a split second.
By the 1950s, but they'd left their mark. They were similar in spirit to, say, the American Western, except with
Japan was super hot in the 40s for like 0.3 of a second.
Beer, lederhosen, dancing, and what you could really only describe as very suspicious-looking goats.
Scott says 94. Okay, I'm sorry. Sorry, old man, sir? Should I call you sir? Get out of here, Scott. Get out of here.
What is happening in this
Go
scene.
crawl into your grave.
Anyway, the goats aren't important, but what is important is Germany's ostensibly miraculous post-war economic recovery, because this meant that tourist agencies began to bombard the public with adverts calling Germans to break.
Scott says Gen X, but he means Gen X from the last time they went through the alphabet. So, you know, we're in generation beta now, right? Generation beta, right? It's crazy. Both my kids are alphas, but if I have more kids, which I probably will, they're going to be betas.
Away from it all and
Early
answer the
betas.
call of the mountains. With Tenzing Norgay and Sir Edmund Hillary's successful Everest summit in 1953, just a year prior to the boys' trip,
Hush your mouth, Gen Y.
mania was officially at an all-time
I've heard that a
high,
lot.
And these boys were over the moon for their first mountain adventure, with their favourite teacher no less, Hans Seiler, who would also be acting as their experienced guide.
Carrie C says my mom was born in 1942. She's single?
As the group of 10 boys and 4
God, what does that make her? 80-something. 83?
accompanying teachers, including Hans, left their hostel at 6 a.m. on the dot, the weather report...
Despite what you've heard says, I've been here for like 10 minutes, but I haven't had anything clever to add. You don't have to say anything clever. You just say sup, you know? And Nilo, 1373. I'm Nilo, an international chef. I cook German, Persian, English, Chinese, American cuisine. Please follow. No, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give you a mute.
showed that conditions
There you go,
were
Nilo.
ideal. Relatively mild, in fact, with some northwest winds, a cloudy sky, and occasional low rainfall. Hans, or Mr. Seiler, made hostel workers aware of both their route up the mountain and their expected time of return, 6 p.m. And with that, off they all went.
Carrie C says, nah, my mom done died in 2014. Is she single?
For the adventure of a
Jeez.
lifetime.
You already sold it, all right? You know, you don't have to keep digging.
By 6 p.m.,
You
the
struck
boys that
oil.
hadn't been chosen for the hike and
Yeah, I'm
the
gonna strike
remaining
your mom.
teachers had made their way to
Sorry.
the hostel's communal dining hall and were waiting for the group to
Sorry.
show up and tell them all about their exploits.
I'm sorry.
But half an hour passed and there was no sign of them. As the remaining schoolboys ate their dinner and excitedly and, at the time, jealously, gossiped about the epic adventure they imagined the group were now having up on the mountain, teachers and hostel workers began to worry. That day, some unexpected snow had fallen over Obertraun, but since the forecast was okay for the mountain, nobody had been too concerned. Still, it would be dark soon.
It's gonna be
so
rough
the
in there.
hostel owner began
It's
to
gonna be
call
rough up
around
there.
along the huts that lined the group's route. But he was met with confusion, because nobody had seen a group matching that description. They hadn't seen any group, for that matter. All activity had been called off because a completely unexpected snowstorm, the worst they'd seen in years, was now raging up in the mountain.
That happens.
The next few hours were
I used to live near this place called Donner Pass. I mean, I was like an hour away from it, but I would drive over it to go snowboarding a lot. And it is a treacherous stretch of road. They called it Donner Pass because back in like 1840 something, some covered wagon settlers tried passing over it in the dead of winter. And the thing about Donner Pass, it gets like the most snow in the world, because moist air comes off of the Pacific Ocean and it gets pushed up the Sierra Nevadas, and it just absolutely dumps snow right there. It's how California has so much water, right? Even though they're diverting it right into the ocean. Not using it for fires, that's for sure. But it can change. The weather can change in a minute. It is treacherous. Oh, and the people that tried to pass in the they ended up almost all of them dying. The ones that did not die had to feed off the corpses of the ones that did die because they were stuck there all winter. And it was a brutal type of story. Look up the Donner Party if you have the time or something like that. There's a big statue there commemorating them, and they ate each other. Yeah, they got stuck in the mountains and they ate each other. Almost all of them. There's like 90 people and they all yeah, it was bad.
Fraught with panic and confusion as the remaining teachers, hostel workers, and then police.
But did you die of
struggled to piece
dysentery?
everything
I'm sure a lot of them did die of dysentery, right? They weren't going to Oregon, though. They were going to California.
together. Everybody was asking the same question. Why didn't the group turn around? And why wasn't there a single sign of them along their pre-agreed route? Surely somebody must have seen them. But the answer, it turned out, was simple.
Yes, the Cannibal Pass.
They'd never even stepped foot on it. You see, one of the teachers had overheard these panicked conversations and was confused because the route...
David says Donner Jerky was people. Yes, Donner Jerky, it was not jerky. It was frozen solid. And they had to put like pieces in their mouth and like wait for them to thaw. And yeah, cutting bits. It's like, have you ever seen that movie Alive? Where the soccer team crashes in the Andes and they have to eat each other. It's a lot like that, only like a lot more people were on the menu, so to speak. And yeah.
Hostel workers were
Yep.
talking about didn't sound like the route Hans was talking about in the days prior, and one of the group's accompanying teachers who had turned back
Hans is a
around due
fucking
to an
idiot.
afternoon meeting had done so at
Is that the
an
Matterhorn?
inn. This definitely wasn't the route that had been pre-agreed with hostel workers. It was then that they knew the group was in serious trouble. Even though it was pitch black, two small but highly experienced search parties went out into the blizzard that night. One became lost and the other returned in the early hours of the morning, none the wiser as to where the group could have possibly gone. Early the next morning,
Dead.
with the blizzard still in full effect across the mountains, the largest alpine rescue to date began. But with freezing cold temperatures and visibility of less than 5 meters, it was extremely slow going.
Like 15 feet. If you guys don't know your metric system, but 5 meters is roughly 15 feet. So they're bad conditions. That's bad conditions.
In this time, rescuers began to retrace the group's steps on the date of their discovery.
Scott says Donner trail mix packed with fresh nuts. Oh. But yeah, you're right. I'm sure they went to that for the testicles first. They're rich in protein and they're soft, and you don't. I mean, they were probably ice, though, right? So he had to suck on these nuts one last time. That's what I would have said.
Disappearance. It was exactly as they'd suspected. Witnesses would confirm.
That's an old joke. That joke goes back to the pioneer days. The suck on these nuts. Yeah. They had jokes back then, too. You know, a lot of people thought it was all sadness and grief and stuff. And it was a lot of that. But there was also jokes.
Confirmed that they had indeed taken a path up the mountain, and just not the one they were supposed to have been taking. That day, at around 9 a.m, the already exhausted-looking group had been spotted at an inn on a path that was several miles from their original route.
Group spotted at inn. Oh, that's not good. So they went up yonder. Hold on. Yonder, when they were supposed to go up this way, which seems a lot more conservative, right? Especially for a bunch of children, kids. Like, I mean, I understand they're 14 to 16, and males of that age are formidable, right? They would be in the army if they wanted to. That's perfectly, depending on the year, of course. If they were in the Civil War, those bitches would be in the army. But yeah, not well trained. They're not well trained, and they go up this pass, which seems a lot tougher. That seems a lot tougher, because then you have to go up this, which I am sure is a cliff or some sort, and then go this way. And oh yeah, there's a terrible blizzard that rolled in.
At about this,
So even if you were going the regular path, you would have still need to bail out of that. I mean, if you see a blizzard, go back. Go back. You know, don't wait for it to blow over or anything like that. Go back now. I would never be caught dead on a mountain, because I think that's the dumbest white people sport. Mountaineering is the dumbest white people sport. I'm sorry, you wanna walk to the top of that thing? Why? Why would you? We have helicopters. We have jetpacks and stuff. You can ride a jetpack up there. You can fly in a plane, bro. It's the dumbest one. And it costs a fortune to go mountaineering. It costs a fortune. Like, I think it costs like $100,000 to climb up Mount Everest. If you want like the average cost, like it's $100,000 a person to climb up Mount Everest. So you need to have some cash. But I would just do other things. Not that. I would rather go spelunking in a cave. I have done that. It's a lot more fun. I don't want to go way up. You know, I don't want to die in the cold. I want to die in the darkness where I can't hear anything. And I just slowly go mad. I'm not realizing I'm dying because I don't see anything and I don't hear anything. And I'm just existing inside of a void inside of my head. So I think that's a lot more comfortable. For me, you know, you do you.
this time, the first snow had begun to fall, and Hans was reportedly made aware
I like
of
to
the
go a little
incoming
crazy
storm by the
before.
innkeeper. This was when one of the teachers of the group, Hildegard Matez, needed to turn around in order to make her meeting on time. At 11 a.m.,
Ardenshire says, for perspective, they had flying dirigibles and electricity when the dinner party died. I'm sorry about your dinner party.
the group was sighted by workers a little further up the
But
mountain.
dirigibles are cool.
Assuming they were lost,
Are
the
they like Lunchables?
workers warned them against continuing and offered to
Better?
guide them back down. On both occasions, Hans shrugged off any offers of help or warnings to continue. And now I know what you're thinking if you've watched my previous video. Surely this cannot be happening again. Surely a
Mr.
well-respected and experienced
Mr. Keast is his name. Not to be confused with Mr. Beast, who might be Satan. You ever think about that? He comes back and he's a YouTuber. I would believe that.
teacher isn't about to drag his students up a mountain into a storm. Again. But alas, the bar is in hell, my friends. And in an eerily similar manner to the English calamity, just like Mr. Keast, Hans insisted that he knew what he was doing, and was overheard saying things like, "They're young boys, they just need exercise, and they just have to warm up." Beyond this last sighting at 11 a.m, the group's direction was unknown. In spite of a massive rescue effort which was broadcast across the world, their direction remained a
not
complete
positive.
mystery. That was until 9 days later, on Saturday the 24th of April, when rescuers stumbled across something approximately 1 kilometre east of the group's last known location. It was a makeshift shelter. Following the trail, rescuers
I'm sorry. How do you build a town here? How does a town start right here in surrounded by mountains, right? There's a lake. I'm sure it's gorgeous too. I'm sure it's a beautiful little town. But like, how? How did you do that? Why did you do that? Just because it looks nice? It's surrounded by mountains.
continued to work their way east, deep into the mountains.
Oof,
Eventually, they spotted something else in the snow.
that's not good.
Confused at first, as they got closer, they realised what it was. A hand, reaching out of the snow. Here they discovered the 2 teachers that had accompanied Hans, the newly engaged Hans Rupp and Christa Volmer. They were found lying together underneath the snow some 3 kilometers east from their intended destination.
That's a bummer.
Within a few hours, they found the frozen bodies of 8 more boys huddled together underneath a pile of branches, a temporary shelter that they appeared to have made in an attempt to stay warm. On the 14th of May, they found another boy, and then finally, on the 28th of May, they found the body of Hans, and the youngest schoolboy. He was just 14. The two were found on the floor in an embrace with Hans' jacket over both of them as a blanket. Among the bodies, rescuers would find a camera with a number of photos that would tell a haunting story.
I'd be pissed. I'd be mad, dude. Why did this stupid teacher bring them all the way out to this place just to die, and in separate places? What about the married people? Weren't they like, hey, we should stop? You're an idiot. We should turn back.
Piecing it all together, what happened here was no longer a mystery. And it would turn out that Hans wasn't quite the mountaineer he claimed to be. In fact, he had been warned by hostile workers to be careful after...
Background noise says, back then they only needed a saloon and prostitutes to have a town. Well, this isn't America. But in America, yeah, totally, absolutely. But, I mean, back then what is this, Austria? Have a clockmaker, I guess? I don't know. People have been living there forever. It was probably one guy living there, and then he had like 50 kids, and then they just decided to start a town there. That's probably what happened. Some like Yukon Jack kind of character, and he just stayed and built the place.
He suggested a number of wild...
He's a very suspicious looking guy.
inappropriate routes in the days leading up.
What is with your teeth, man? It looks like... It doesn't look like they're installed into his head. It looks like he went bobbing for teeth. Right? Like there was a bowl of teeth, and he tried to get as many into his mouth as possible. With his hands behind his back. And then he pulls up, and that's what it... See? That's what it looks like he did. He bobbed for his teeth.
To the fateful hike. Hans really wasn't happy about this, but following the hostel's policy, he agreed upon a more suitable route.
Despite says, man, fuck dying from freezing to death. Yeah, that would suck, dude. That would suck, because you know you're dying. And the last thing that happens before you freeze to death is you get really hot. And then you start like taking off your clothes, right? And this is like your body's last defense mechanism for whatever reason, is to make you feel super hot. So when people freeze to death, a lot of times you'll see them strip off all their clothes and then they're just dead naked. It's happened a bunch of times. I don't know why that's what your body does, but that's what your body does. It makes you feel hot for like a few minutes before you're finally going to freeze to death. I hate feeling hot. I can handle the cold pretty well, but I don't like being hot. So I'd be naked in the snow, dead. Yeah, it doesn't seem like a good way to go. Drowning could be pretty peaceful, except for the couple minutes before you take that deep inhale of water. But after that, it's smooth sailing.
Or so the workers thought. The truth is, Hans lied. That morning, once he was out the door and the workers were out of earshot, he simply changed the route.
What a fucking idiot. What a stupid person. What, you have a bunch of kids in tow. You have a bunch of teenagers in tow. And they have no idea, dude. Nobody said nothing. They wouldn't even know. This is all on Hans. Fuck you, Hans. Fuck you, bro. I'm going to go slap your mom. I hope somebody went and slapped his mom. I'm sure she was sad. But then she gets slapped by like 60 people.
The extent to which the group were aware of exactly what they were getting themselves into is unclear. But they would eventually find themselves in some of the...
background noise says paradoxical undressing. I learned that from Archer. That's cool. Did I learn that from Archer? I don't think so. I've seen Archer. I don't know if I've seen that episode.
Toughest terrain in the area. It's easy to become lost or succumb to...
Ardenshire says drowning seems peaceful, says the guy burning to death. Are you making a comment about how I'm going to hell? Because I don't appreciate that. And I don't even think that's the case. I don't know. Maybe. I hope not. At least I hope I don't stay in hell. If I have to go to hell, well, then I have to go. But I just don't want to, like, stay there. Can I not stay there for, like, ever? I would appreciate not staying there.
Do a quick change in the weather if you don't
Apparently,
know
all
what
you
you're
have to
doing.
do is ask.
And it would seem that Hans didn't.
Never trust a Hans. That's
This
a
was
good
the
point. That's a good... If you've seen God, what is the movie called? Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker. If you've seen that movie, I forget what it's called right now. Never trust a Hans. Never trust a Hans. It's pretty cut and dry. A Hans is always a bad guy. Pretty clear.
Story that the photos told.
Hans Gruber, yeah.
Because it seemed like the hike started out fine. The boys and the teachers are laughing. But something is amiss. There's no signage, no discernible path. They're not appropriately dressed. And the terrain looks...
Ardenshire says no people that compare ways of dying are funny. LL, no people that compare ways of dying are funny. None of them are good. What there's not a good way to die. Even like those suicide tubes that, were supposed to stay in Futurama, but we decided to bring them out and now they're in Canada. Those suicide, we get in the tube and they see your body clearly. They see everything about you. And then there's a button on the side that says, I don't know what that button says. Is it just a green button or is it a red button? Or does it say, like, kill yourself? Or it's got to say something. Would it say, are you sure? Yeah, even those. Apparently, even though they're supposed to be peaceful and soft and it's supposed to lull you to sleep to the forever land, that's not exactly what happens when you press that button. Apparently, people, like, start flopping around and like hitting against the glass and stuff because their brain is starving for oxygen, and it's not just going to let you go like that. It doesn't care if you're in cancer pain. It's going to freak out if it thinks it's dying, right? You might be completely prepared for it, but your brain ain't. So, and they have a big window on it, and so they see people flopping around, and it's like, oh my God. Oh my God. There better be a good lock on it. That's all I'm saying. Just a real good lock.
unforgiving. It doesn't look anywhere close to the kind of hike that is suitable for school children. Yet, even as conditions worsen, the group persists.
David Thrope says Dead Hard, I think. Dead Hard? It's Die Hard. Yeah, now that you said it is Die Hard, you're right. I spaced on the name.
In the final photos, the
that's the
laughter is
ticket.
gone. They're cold and exhausted. The snow is up to their knees. And then we see the beginnings of a whiteout. The photo that you're looking at now.
Praise the cameraman? Is this one of those situations where you praise the cameraman? Because even though this kid knew he was dying, or adult, whatever, knew he was dying, he was like, I'm still going to get these shots. And that's exactly what I would do. I'd be like, people are going to find us eventually. And they're going to want to know whose fault this was. And it was clearly Hans' fault. So I'm going to snap a few pictures. And not like, being a bitch curled up and being like, I'm going to die. No, he's like, I'm going to do this one last job before I go. And then that's it. That's it. I mean, the pictures are going to be famous. So in a weird way, you're going to be famous, but not necessarily because of the pictures, because you died. Hans killed you.
Is the very last photo found on the camera.
Nice, Hans.
From
Good job,
here,
Hans.
Visibility reduced at a breakneck speed. According to some reports, it was just a few meters. At this point, becoming completely lost was inevitable. Now there was really only one question left to ask. Why would Hans do something like this?
He was gay.
Looking at those photos, it's hard to know what the hell he was thinking. Though, perhaps unsurprisingly, it would later come to light that Hans had a few notable character flaws, including, according to some, a pathological dislike of authority. While his students loved him, some of his peers were not quite so keen.
Okay, so if he's got personality flaws and like a loose grasp on reality, why would you send not only your child, but a bunch of other kids with him on a potentially deadly hike? Potentially deadly. Deadly trip. This guy's a loose cannon who doesn't listen to authority in any way. And they're like, yeah, he's probably all right. Oh, whose fault is that? It could be the parents' fault. It could be the school system's fault. I guess we're going to have to wait and see.
Before he had left that morning, Hans was warned by the hostel owner about how fickle the weather could be in April, to which he angrily retorted, "Why don't you worry about your own affairs?"
Shut up! Shut up! I'm going up that mountain the hard way with all these kids. How many kids was it? Like 30 kids?
As the question of guilt was hotly debated in the media, the families of those lost would initiate a civil lawsuit against the school, but this lawsuit would later be dropped. The question of liability was difficult. This was technically a community trip, one which many from outside of the school attended, so finding the school responsible was tricky. Plus, the school administration had some important findings to point the parents to in a not so dissimilar incident that took place in Freiburg in April of 1936, where the teacher was found to be, you guessed it, innocent. In the end, some parents felt such a lawsuit would only degrade the tragedy into a topic of conversation for the public.
That's fair. And lawsuits, I mean, this is in America, right? This is in Austria or Germany or whatever. So a lawsuit might not be as lucrative as one in America. You sue a school system. If you sue a school system in the United States, you can make a lot of money. There's a lot of money in those school systems. Most of it goes into the administrator's pocket. If you ever go to like an administrator's meeting for like a school or something like that, they're all in like Jaguars and Mercedes and very nice cars. Because people don't want to vote against the children. And so you kind of have this runaway budget in the federal education system that just gets absorbed by these people that don't really do anything. They're just administrators. And the teachers don't get any of it. The students don't really benefit from it at all. But they make positions where these, some guy's friend or his cousin can hop on and he's making 300, 400K a year for doing essentially nothing. It's embezzlement, but it's also just, it's so corrupt. The education system in the United States is so corrupt. And I'm happy to hear that the Department of Education is being disbanded. Good. About time. Hopefully that's going to cause some good reform, not going to change kids into like the opposite gender or like convince them to be homosexuals or stuff like that. All federally funded programs, by the way.
So they dropped it. Aside from the flurry of reports in the days and weeks after the group were discovered, the question of guilt, specifically the extent to which Hans' actions constituted gross negligence or even intention to harm.
It is gross negligence. I mean, there is a firm gross negligence case right there. Intention to harm is a little bit less cut and dry, but I think it could be argued. I think it could definitely be argued, but also, what's it matter? He's dead.
Mostly
who
ignored.
Cares?
It wasn't until 2014 when some of those present that day were re-interviewed for a documentary that would later be aired on German television that a darker side to Hans' character emerged.
In between the porn commercials. I spent some time in Germany when I was like 16. On public access, they have pornography. On public, You know, you just flip to like channel 6 or something like that, and you get some decent softcore. So, and it's open. There's no reason not to. You don't have to pay for nothing. It's free German porn, which is, I mean, it's tamer than when you hear German porn, when you hear the term German porn, you're like, oh my God, that's like bad. But it's free German porn, so it's much more softcore. It's worse than Cinemax, but like better than, I don't know, the rest of the porn, dude. The rest of the porn. It wasn't like people shitting on each other and like, you know, drinking piss and stuff. Maybe it is now, though. Maybe it was just back then because, you know, that was like 20 years ago. Jeez. But yeah. No Scheisse videos. No Scheisse videos, right? No pissing videos. No Scheisse videos. Nothing like that. Just good old German boobs.
Hans' decisions that day in a different light.
Same in Canada.
But whether Hans was the kind of person...
Not for long. We're going to take Canada over. Canada is going to be ours. That's the end of it. I have to say no more. That Canada just belongs to us. It's our property. And we let them act like a country for all this time. We're not going to let them do that anymore. Canada, you belong to us. And even if you were not willing to be part of the United States, we could just stop trade with you, and then you would economically die. What do we provide? 40% of your GDP? So, yeah, there's nothing you can do. There's just nothing you can do. You can put up a fight if you want, but you're going to die anyway. So, I love it when people on, like, Twitter, they're like, oh, come try to invade Canada, and we're going to hit you with hockey sticks and stuff like that. I'm like, okay. You sure about that, eh? No, you will succumb almost immediately. If it has to go to attrition, then by all means, but Canadian winters aren't all that cool, and you get most of your food from us.
Person you'd like to drink a beer with is...
We get a little bit of oil. We do get a decent... a somewhat decent amount of oil from Canada, but we also have oil. We just don't extract it for whatever reason, but drill baby drill. So there's really no reason. And if Canada wants to, you have no choice, Canada. You just have absolutely no choice. So just deal with it. Sign the paper. Okay. Don't make us kill all the Indians that live in your country.
Me at least, irrelevant.
I know that sounds like a positive, and it will be, but because once America gets in there, all those Indians are going back to India.
Evidenced in the archive.
Nah, that's not so bad. That's not such a bad deal.
Material. He exaggerated his experience. He changed the route without advising the hostel owner, and he ignored several warnings not to continue. And while it is true that the weather did change
Carrie C says, frack me, daddy. Frack me hard. Frack me from behind.
Rapidly, but unexpectedly, even, it wasn't the weather that was leading the group that day.
Nice. Do we even, I mean, I know we use fracking and stuff like that. I remember fracking was like a big deal because they didn't know how to do it right. And it was making people's like water shoot out natural gas, and so they could set their water on fire, which is pretty funny. But also not positive. Is that still an issue where like fracking, the technology of fracking is still not there? I think we got it. I think we kind of figured it out because it's a relatively new technology. But I think we got it hammered out. Just don't frack near your towns. I feel like that would be pretty obvious, right? If you frack underneath a town, the natural gas is going to get into the water supply, and then that becomes an issue.
It was Hans. In the end, perhaps
only 4 likes is pretty lame. Somebody like the video, please. If you mind, do you mind liking my video, please?
Questions are not unanswerable so much as they are.
If you do, then don't worry about it.
After all, As many have argued, Hans also paid the ultimate price. And nothing brings those kids back.
Yeah, they did. Oof. Ugh. I don't like seeing child coffins. It's not. I know some people that's their thing. It's not my thing. You know. Background noise says I liked it a lot. But you can only do it once. So make more accounts, background noise.
Sensation on first going underwater was of such a strange world.
This is more my specialty.
Water, and all of a sudden, the
Dive
water
accidents.
looked very, very dark and intimidating.
I'm ready. I love dive accidents.
The full history of cave diving.
There's something about like writhing for your last breath and then just peacefully drifting off in the darkness. I would do that over the stupid suicide booth. Why have a suicide booth? There's so many better ways to do it, right? Why have a stupid suicide booth where you're sitting there flopping around inside this glass chamber where everyone sees you and they're like, are you sure he doesn't feel anything? No, he's at rest and he's flopping around, right? Trying to break out of it. Like, no, man. Jump off of something. Jump off of something. Or hang yourself. Just don't do it in front of people, right? Because then you're going to do the dance, right? When you hang yourself, you do a little dance. Just to send them out with a show, I guess. Jump off something. I know there's like a last few seconds, like 10 seconds of your life where like, oh, I actually decided I wanted to live. It's too late now. It's too late now. You're on your way down. At the bottom, there's not a big, like, you know, whoopee cushion you can land on and it'll save you. It's going to be concrete or a car. And it's not going to hurt. It's not going to hurt. It's not going to hurt. It might be a bright white flash and then it's over. And then you are in another realm or whatever the hell you are. Hell? I don't know. That's possible.
Diving is long and complicated, so for the sake of brevity, here's an extremely brief summary. Technically, there was never anything stopping anyone jumping into an underwater cave and attempting to swim to the next air pocket except for common sense. To that end, cave freediving has always existed, but the first successful cave dive with breathing apparatus...
That's true. There's no law that says you can't rent scuba gear and then go scuba diving with absolutely zero training. There's no law that says that. I don't even see a reason to have a law that says that, because if somebody wants to do that, go ahead. I mean, you might be okay, but like you're probably not going to be okay. There's like a decent, it's not that hard. It's just there's stuff you need to know so you don't get like the bends and stuff. Yeah. So there's no real reason to make that law. But I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that.
British, who in 1935 said what I can only assume was something along the lines of hold my beer and watch this, before crawling on their hands and knees along the floor of a submerged section of a pitch black limestone cavern in a pair of 190-pound naval diving suits, one of which had been patched with tape. Dragging...
What's wrong with tape? Tape works. These aren't pressurized suits, right? Right? Well, they would have to have some sort of air inside them. Otherwise, it would collapse the suit. So there's air and it's pressurized, but it's supposed to be the same pressure as the surrounding water. So it's not going to be an issue really. Tape will be fine. That's what I'm saying. Tape will be fine. But you're probably going to die anyway, because you're in a diving bell essentially that you wear.
Their breathing hoses behind them and praying they didn't get tangled, they eventually emerged in an air pocket unscathed and, well, cave diving as we know it was born. Cave diving has come a long way since then, and while it has obvious utility in certain fields, it's now also practiced as an extreme sport, of which it is, statistically speaking, the second most dangerous.
It is a very stupid thing to do. to just go into a cave. If you're like an open water diver and you got your cert, and you're like, okay, I'm going to strap this thing on and I'm going to go into this random cave that I don't know what's in there. That's a very stupid idea. Caves can be very dangerous. Underwater caves, there can be flows that you're not aware of. There could be tides in there. There could be underwater rivers. It'll silt up very quickly. The pressure from your bubbles that you exhale can put pressure on the ceiling and it could collapse the cave. There's a lot of things that can go very wrong when you go cave diving. So it would be very stupid to do that. I've gone cave diving. I've done like a cenote in Mexico. That was really cool. And you have to like squeeze through things, right? So you have to like, and you have that tank behind you, and it's very hard not to kick up the silt. And you have to hold on to the line. The line is your life. You let go of that line and you will die.
Just behind base jumping, which is the act of literally throwing yourself off any high point of your choosing. Cave diving, in a word, can be wildly dangerous, especially the competitive type. But the cave diving story we're going to look at today wasn't supposed to be like that.
Onia says the bends aren't real like nukes. That is completely incorrect. I've known people that have gotten the bends. That is completely incorrect. No, the bends is actually a terrible condition where the nitrogen in your blood comes out of solution and it can block capillaries and it can make your joints curl up. Like this one lady, she got bent is the term, and she was on the boat over to the decompression or the recompression chamber. It's a chamber, and you can see their hands start to curl up on them, and there's not a lot of time at that point. You have to get into the deco chamber pretty quickly, and then you might be in there for a while depending on how far you went into decompression. It's a lot of math, but yeah, typically most divers don't go into deco very far, but it just depends on your physiology, depends on what kind of mixture you're breathing. It depends on how deep you are, how long you were down there, just a ton of things. Fresh water, salt water.
It was a simple, straightforward, well-rehearsed dive.
Send me a link.
And yet it would become one of the cave diving community's most viscerally horrifying stories.
Sterkfontein, Johannesburg, South Africa. Wasn't the last one we watched in South Africa? South Africa's rough. A lot of caves. Sterkfontein.
It was 1984, and 3 divers were standing confidently at the entrance of Sterkfontein Cave, just an hour's drive outside of Johannesburg, South Africa. A number of incredible discoveries had been made at the cave in previous years, but it was a large, complicated, mostly unexplored wet and dry caving system, so it hadn't yet been mapped. But Nuno, Malcolm and Peter, 3 science students at the local university and members of its diving club...
Look at those. Those are retro kits, dude. So this is like, these are like air rings, and there's like there's a tank on there, you inflate it. It's a buoyancy compensator. That's what it is. You can inflate it with your mouth, or it has a little tank. Retro, though. Yeah. This was probably super high tech for them.
Had plans to change all of that. Having already completed a number of preparation dives in the cave, Nuno would be taking the lead.
David says, is this the one where the dude died and the other dude died trying to get his body? No. That was also in Africa. I don't think it was in South Africa, but this is not that. This is a different cave in South Africa. A lot of people have died cave diving. A lot of people have died cave diving. I think if you're a cave diver, even the best in the world, and there are people who are the best in the world. When those kids got trapped in Thailand, you guys remember a bunch of schoolboys went into a cave in Thailand and then it started raining a lot and they got trapped. They called in the best cave divers in the world, who usually do it recreationally, but they can also do it like this. Even one of them, actually one, like a military diver, died. You can die very easily. You can get caught on something. You can run out of air. Depending on your depth, you can get nitrogen narcosis. You can get O2 toxicity. There's a million ways it can kill you. There's like so many ways it can kill you. And it does. And it kills people all the time. Not as bad as base jumping, but slightly less bad. But that's not great. It's not great. I would love to do cave dives. I really enjoy cave diving. I've done penetration wreck dives. I've done cave dives. Cave dives scare me. They scare me because I've seen too much stuff. I've never had a problem with one, but I've seen too many things where I'm just like, ugh.
I'd be leading Peter and Malcolm through a 125-metre submerged section of the cave via an underground lake where the water would be no more than 4 metres deep. The goal was simple: establish a permanent guideline for future dives.
I know this guy. Mr. Ballin. Yeah, I've seen his stuff. Yeah.
They'd be in and out in less than half an hour. According to Nuno, the dive was so straightforward it was almost recreational. But in spite of the dive's simplicity, there was, to quote Nuno, the excitement of exploration in the air.
I'll look into Mr. Ballin's videos and see if I can play off one of his videos. I'm sure.
After all, here were 3 science students about to explore somewhere of exceptional paleoanthropological importance. No one was expecting a fully intact pre-hominid skeleton to jump out and shake their hands, but who knows what they might find. Nuno gave the obligatory pre-dive brief to the group, and armed with 1 torch and 1 oxygen...
Thought says penetration rectal dives. Yeah, that's what I meant. Never mind.
Each, both lasting approximately 70 minutes or so. The 3 made their way inside, with Nuno leading the way.
No. We're just talking about people getting lost in the darkness and dying, thought. So it's comforting to me. And don't look into that any further.
Even though he was carrying 1 spare oxygen cylinder, Nuno admits that by modern standards, we were probably poorly equipped. Though, to be fair, back then there were no formal courses for cave diving, only common sense rules laid out by various diving.
So they had a single extra. If you look at cave divers today, they'll have several tanks. They'll do dives where they dive into a cave and then leave an air tank with a regulator on it, just in case. So when they do the final push, they can still have that air if they have to stay in decompression or something like that. So they'll have a bunch of tanks going down. You can't have too much air. But to bring 1 tank is pretty ballsy, especially you're going in, you have no idea where you're going. Yeah, that's pretty scary. And these guys died because of it.
Clubs and caving associations.
So yeah.
After what was about to happen at Sterkfontein, though, that would all change. The first half of the dive went well. The group navigated...
Onia says, did you see the story of the guy who got trapped in the air pocket in an underwater cave and was saved by miners in a mine that just happened to be right next to the cave? What? Really? What are the chances of that happening? 1 in a trillion? That's crazy. I haven't seen that.
Navigated their way to the small air pocket, surfaced, secured the end of the line, admired the cave's spectacular beauty, and made their way back. It seems that at some point, though, curiosity got the better of Peter, because on their way back, he went off the guideline. Something he had, at least according to Nuno, who has described him as somewhat of a loner, been quite prone to doing in their previous dives, which at points had really annoyed his fellow divers.
You don't let go of the line. You just don't. You don't let go of the line. We can watch a proper cave dive, and you'll see how much they actually prepare. They prepare for months and months and months, and everything is planned out. And it's not just like planning, it's also like physical, right? Because they have to make sure their bodies are in top shape just to process it's not specifically just oxygen, but the gases that are going into their system. They have to be able to off-gas nitrogen effectively for them to make all their times, because it's a race against the clock, right? You have to stay down there. You have to go down long enough to like get your job done or do whatever you're going to do. But then you need to be able to resurface without getting bent, like having the nitrogen not have enough time to come out of your blood so it doesn't like expand in your brain and kill you.
A caving expert, so I asked Nuno if this was breaking one of the common sense rules that he had laid out at the beginning of the dive, to which he responded unequivocally, yes.
Yeah.
He told me that, quote, when one
Yeah.
enters a cave, the water may be clear, but in very tight caves, the silt gets disturbed. Even if you're very careful, soon the water becomes very murky. It's very difficult to find your way out if you leave the line and there's no visibility. This time, though, Peter got lucky. He would be found just out of view, observing something with his torch. Within minutes, Nuno managed to locate him and guide him back to the line. He wasn't shaken up, so checking everyone was
Hey,
behind
social
him,
observer.
Nuno continued to lead the group back.
All right, I like that. It comes in with a bang. Hold on. I got the bell. There we go. That's the bell for Social Observer. $10 says, dude, I've heard horror stories of cave divers almost dying from vertigo when going too deep, and something to do with pressure that makes them go deeper instead of out of the cave. Yeah, it's nitrogen narcosis. When you go down, you lose your senses. And when I mean senses, I mean like it feels like you're getting drunk. They have the martini scale, which is if you're at 30 meters, you're at 1 martini. If you're at 50 meters, you're at 2 martinis, and it goes like that. Like the deeper you go, the more martinis it feels like you have drank, and it legitimately feels like that. I've gone pretty deep before, and you feel fucked up. Like it's not, when you're down there, it's worrying, right? If you're like 150 feet under the surface and you're like all loopy and shit, it's not like relaxing. If you go down 100 feet, it feels pretty good. I enjoy doing it. I was about it. You go like a lot deeper than that, it gets sketchy. It gets really sketchy. But it's not just nitrogen narcosis. You can also get O2 toxicity depending on your mixture. And that doesn't feel like anything that I know of, but if you get O2 toxicity, then you start twitching a lot. Uncontrolled movements, and like your cheeks twitch, and like you start like kind of spazzing out. So, tech divers will actually have a rubber band that they put on their regulator and around their head so they don't accidentally spit their regulator when they're down very, very deep, which could obviously be an issue. Somebody died trying to figure that out.
To the cavernous
Yes.
room containing the lake where they had begun the dive. And when they emerged, Peter was gone.
Ardenshire says we follow the Appletini scale. No, we don't. We follow the White Claw scale, right? How many White Claws? And it's like several. I need at least 10 White Claws. Before I even sharpen up, I need at least 10 White Claws.
At first there was...
I go in drunk, I'll have a few White Claws before I even get into the water. Maybe have some mushrooms too, just to make sure the colors brighten up. Hey, I'm gonna, YOLO.
confusion.
YOLO.
But Nuno and Malcolm had more than enough oxygen left, so they just went back in to find him. 4 hours passed, and Peter was nowhere to be seen. And then confusion turned to panic, and they eventually called the police. It would be fire brigade.
By the time you call the police, everyone's dead. That's just it. By the time the first person calls the police, everyone down there's dead. There's nothing you can do. If somebody doesn't surface and you're like, what do we do? They're dead. They are dead, right? There's no way they're like trapped under a rock or something like that. You know how much air they have. And, okay, here's the thing. You know how much air they have, right? But you don't know how deep they are. And the deeper they are, the less air they have. Because when it comes to pressure, you're actually breathing in a lot more air from your tank than if you were at like much shallower. That's why firefighters can carry a lot more air time in their tanks than scuba divers can, because it's a pressure differential. You're absorbing like 4 times as much air at like 40 meters, like 30 meters. 4 times as much air at 30 meters. So, which is like 100 feet. So your air goes quick. That's why they have so much air these days, right? So going in with only 1 spare tank is, I would consider that suicide. But they didn't really understand as much as we do today. This was 50 years ago. So they understood some basic things. They understood decode timetables and stuff. They were formulating decompression timetables back in the 1800s, right? The original name for the bends came from people that would build bridges, and they would go into these caverns, right, that were not flooded, but they had high pressure air. And when these people came out, they would get sick, right? Their heads would explode. That's where they would get the bends, because they would literally bend over. The little bubbles in between their joints would expand, and it would cause them to curl really badly, like I was describing earlier. So they called it the bends. So, yeah. We call it decompression sickness these days, though.
Gay divers that would arrive, and they took one look at the cave and refused to go in.
That's smart. I'd be like, fuck no. Nope, they're dead. Put up a plaque. Let's go home.
They had no experience of technical cave dives, so Nuno and Malcolm took their oxygen tanks and went back in once more while they waited for specialist divers to arrive, which they did.
Social Observer says taking acid before a cave dive and surviving would be an epic tale. So taking acid, I think you'd be okay. Depending on how much acid you would take. If you took 1 tab of acid, and I mean, even if you took a bunch of, maybe not like 5 tabs, right? If you took a bunch of acid and you had no idea where you were, that would be a problem. But like 1 tab of acid and you went down, you'd have a pretty special experience. I think you'd be okay. But it would be interesting. It'd be interesting, but I think you'd be okay. Don't try it. Don't try it. This is not advice. Don't try that.
And the rescue team had become organised chaos. Nuno and Malcolm were exhausted, but they were keen to emphasise to rescuers that the cave system was complex and that Peter may have surfaced in one of its many air pockets along many of its unexplored passageways. But by that point, owing to the number of divers that had gone in and out and kicked up sediment, the visibility was practically zero. So Nuno and Malcolm, defeated, went home and just left the rescuers to do their jobs.
Yep.
The next morning, they desperately hoped to wake up to good news. But there was none. With all civilian divers banned from entering the cave, that day Nuno and Malcolm and a few others met up with Peter's wife, Shirley. Peter wasn't prone to panicking, they reassured themselves. He was smart, in good shape, an incredibly experienced dry caver.
Not prone to panicking is like, okay, but when you're in a situation where you're like probably going to die, it's like all bets are off, man. You're going to flip out and you try, you might panic, especially if you have time to panic, right? And it's just dark. And then it's just like you have no idea where you are and you're under the earth. And yeah, that's a situation to panic in. That's a situation where panicking, I mean, it's not going to help you. But there's really nothing else to do. You're basically dead.
In fact, he'd dealt with much more challenging caves than Sterkfontein. There was still hope that he'd make it out alive. To quote Nuno, it was really hard to believe that someone could die at Sterkfontein. But any hope they had would slowly fade. With no official map, police were not interested in a possible connection between the wet and dry cave system. Instead...
No, I'm not starting over. I'm not starting over. Buy a shirt, though. Yeah, buy a shirt.
They kept their searches close to the original
Hold
guideline.
on, let me plug my shirt.
After 6 weeks, there was no sign of Peter, and the search was called off.
So, go ahead and take a look at my fine line of shirts. We have the All-Seeing Eye, the Yeti Abduction. That's by So Sleepy. We have another one by So Sleepy that's coming down the pipeline. I have not made it yet. I'm sorry. I just have not had time. We have the Space Potato. I'll get out of the way. That's a nice one. Space Potato. And the rest of these fine clothing threads. These are popular by Thought. So go on over to the Sulk Stream store on Bonfire and buy a shirt. Or do whatever you want to do. Whatever. I'm not your boss.
Peter, they concluded, had long since drowned. But they were wrong. 6 weeks after Peter had gone missing, Sterkfontein was reopened, and Nuno and Malcolm, along with other members of the local cave dive...
3 weeks? 3 weeks later, so they shut it down, and then 3 weeks... So they shut it down, right? They were like looking for somebody, and they shut it down. Nobody go diving in there, okay? Somebody's dead in there. And then 3 weeks later, they're like, all right, he's probably dissolved. What? Okay.
The community headed back into the caves to continue the search. Within a few hours, Nuno had retraced the route and found a connection between the wet and dry caves. Meanwhile, volunteers made their way back down to a previously unknown dry passageway. It wasn't long before they broke through a small hole in the wall, and in doing so, they too uncovered extensive dry passages linking to the wet cave system.
Sick.
As the volunteers began to explore,
cave.
They noticed something strange on the ground. Taking a closer look with their torches, they realized that what they were looking at was in fact human footprints. Eventually, they would come across an opening to a small area connected by a number of dry and submerged passageways. It took them a second before they could process what they were seeing. Because lying there on the ground, next to the water, was Peter's emaciated, lifeless body.
Emaciated. So he was alive. Oh,
Peter hadn't
shit.
He'd starved to death.
Bummer.
And as
Bummer, dude. Bummer. You starved to death in a cave? You starved to death in a cave? That's a bummer. That's a bummer.
they looked at the clues throughout the cave. It didn't take them long to realize how Peter had spent his final weeks.
Background noise says, holy fuck, if he died of dehydration while cave diving, I'm going to have nightmares. So, it was a freshwater cave. Didn't die of dehydration. Worse. Dehydration, it would have been 3 days and then it's over. Which is terrible. Which would be terrible. It would be a terrible experience. But it's only 3 days. He starved to death. Which takes weeks. Weeks in a dark cave. Is that better? Is that better for you? Is that one you want to go for? You want to starve to death in a cave where no one can hear you and you can't see anything? It's dark like this. You can't even imagine the darkness. I mean, you can, but it's that dark. So, and you're just like, I wish I had like a candy bar or something like that. But do you go back in? Something spooked him bad.
There were marks along the walls indicating that Peter had desperately tried to get the attention of rescuers. His brand new cylinder and regulator were severely scratched from his efforts in trying to squeeze himself through the many, many tight passageways. And, somewhat confusingly, his oxygen cylinder was almost full. Peter had enough oxygen to return, but it seems that he chose not to even attempt it. To quote Nuno, "In the fading light, he watched the water surface while calculating if it would be better to dive and never find his way back again, or sit in the darkness and wait." He chose the latter.
That's understandable, right? Okay. What do they tell you as a kid when you get lost? Sit tight, somebody's going to come looking for you. That's always what you're taught, right? Don't try to find your way back. Sit there and somebody will come find you. That's not always the case. That is not always the case. They shut down the cave for 3 weeks. They shut it down. They knew they were going to find a body. Damn. And he probably just died too, right? He just, like 5 minutes before they came walking into the cave, he died, right? All emaciated and just like, damn, that sucks. That sucks.
With about an hour's worth of light in his torch, for Peter, it was a choice between...
Social Observer says the precious ring of Sauron could have saved him. You're absolutely right. But he probably didn't bring it with him. Damn. You could have brought like a candy bar, like a power bar or something, and you would have like had another week, and then you would have been fine.
Getting back in the water and hoping to find the guideline again, or staying put and hoping rescuers would just find him. And they almost did. It was later revealed that police divers had surfaced in a submerged passageway just 30 meters away.
Which is like 100 feet. Which is like, yeah. That sucks.
For one reason or another, possibly because the rescuer didn't make enough noise, possibly because Peter was attempting to find a way out through one of the other passageways, the two missed each other.
He might have been asleep too, right? I mean, like, if you get lost, something scared him bad, right? Something, maybe it was a monster, but it could have just been like, oh shit, I got lost in a cave and I don't want to go back in the water, even though I have a full tank of air. I have no idea where I am. I have no idea how to get back. That's intimidating. That's risking your life. But you know they're looking for you. You know people know you were in that cave, and it's only a matter of time until they find you. But how long was that? It was too long. It was too long. They should have just kept looking. They should have just kept looking. And he should have hopped back in the water. But I understand completely why he did not want to do that. I don't know if I would want to do that. But after a couple weeks, I'd be like, you know what? I'm going to give it a shot. But he was probably just either very weak at that point or just shaking terribly. So that's bad, dude. This is a bad way to... This is probably the worst way to die. That's probably one of the worst ways to die.
It would later be found that Peter had survived for 3 weeks in almost pitch black darkness, the effects of which are terrifying. In absolute darkness, most people begin hallucinating within a matter of days.
Hallucinating in darkness, right? Remember, it's also deathly quiet. No sounds. Complete darkness, deathly quiet. You're going to start hallucinating. Hallucinating pretty badly. Yeah, he had a flashlight, but most of the day was probably, it was off, right? Just saved it for a little bit of time so he can see, but he probably went crazy pretty quick. And then just for 3 weeks, he was just completely out of his mind. That's a bad way to go. That's a bad way to go.
Now, of course, it was Peter's decisions that got him into this situation, but make no mistake, cave diving is inherently dangerous, and even Nuno, who would eventually go on to become a world record holder, has lost track of that all-important guideline. In his case, he eventually found himself alone on a rock deep inside a cave, just like Peter. He took a 50-50 guess at which way to go and just took the plunge. Luckily for him, he guessed correctly, but when you're face to face with the horrors of becoming
The 50-50 shot, guessing correctly or death, right? If you guess right, you get to find the line, and then you get out of the cave. If you guess wrong, then you're going to drown. Or you could sit on the rock for 3 weeks. But he already knew that somebody, so he was like, I'm going in. I'm not going to die like that. I understand his decision.
Completely lost whilst deep within a cave, in spite of all the training in the world. In Nuno's own words, it's impossible to complete.
Background noise says Joe Rogan paid big money for one of those chambers, and this guy does it for free. Does Joe Rogan do HBOT, high pressure bariatric, high pressure treatment? Because I heard really good things about that. I heard it helps with like regrowing cells or some bullshit like that. Senescence. I want to do that. I want to do HBOT. I think it's pretty expensive though. It's pretty expensive. But Joe Rogan has the money.
Completely tame the fear which could grow second by second at a relentless pace. Everyone has a breaking point when things start to go wrong. There's no doubt about that. It's only a matter of time until the monster hiding in the big black of the cave will come and get you.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
As
please.
Peter's body was removed, rescuers would discover a message scratched into the wall.
Oof.
It read, "I love you, Shell and Ma." As a result of the accident, Sterkfontein was permanently closed to divers, and diving courses became mandatory in South Africa from then on.
That's probably smart.
In the weeks and months after Peter's body was discovered, Nuno was hassled non-stop by media. Racked with what-ifs and unable to concentrate, he had to abandon his studies for the year. The death was eventually ruled.
Knob says, I thought he was more with the deprivation tanks. Well, what is he? Is he doing the H-bot or is he doing the deprivation tanks? Because deprivation tanks don't cost a lot of money. But the hyperbaric oxygen therapy, that costs a lot.
Venture, and of course, nobody was deemed responsible, but even though it was Peter's decision to let go of that rope...
You can always build your own hyperbaric chamber. Don't recommend it, though. Like the guy who built his own submarine, right? And then sent a bunch of billionaires down. It was like made out of an old propane tank. And they're like, yeah, this is going to work. And it did. It did. Until it like separated them from atom, right? It absolutely just, it just made them dematerialize. Having an entire ocean land on you is an amazing amount of force. Like, they had to be just absolutely shredded to bits. Absolutely shredded to bits. And, damn, that's, at least it's quick, right? At least it's quick. But the amount of energy just ripping you from cell to cell, just, that's amazing. That's absolutely amazing. That sucks. But they were billionaires. The only one that didn't deserve it was probably the billionaire's son. But the rest of them, yeah, they deserve that. Pretty clearly they deserve that. There's the bell. Social Observer for $10 says, random question here. Would you rather do a 30-day fast or a 1-year no nut? 1 year no nut. It'd be easier. A 30-day fast will kill you. I mean, it could kill you. It could also, I mean, like, a 30-day fast is like to the brink of death, dude. Like, Gandhi did roughly that, and he was about to die. A 30-day fast, it depends on how fat you are, of course. But, like, if you're super mega fat, then of course the fast, because you can live for months off of your fat reserves as long as you get water. But like a year of no nut is like not even an issue. But we're not counting like nocturnal emissions, right? Right? Is it like, because what if it happens like unintentionally? Or is that like an automatic fail? Because there's nothing I can do about that, you know. But yeah, 1 year no nut. That'd be easier. That'd be easier. But if I was like 500 pounds, I would do the 30-day fast. and then you'd be in much better shape. Fasting is actually really good for you. People don't, the weight loss industry doesn't like fasting because nobody gets paid when you fast unless you buy some stupid juice. But you don't need to do that. You just need to stop fucking eating. If you're severely overweight, stop fucking eating. Just stop. No difficult rules or anything like that. Just stop eating for like a week. And do that. It'll change your life. It will. You'll lose a bunch of weight and, you know, you're going to feel a lot better. Just stop eating. Just stop eating. There's nothing complicated about it. Just stop eating. And then just do that until you're not fat anymore. One guy, I think he was morbidly obese. And I think he went something like 6 months without eating. Because he was that fat. He took a multivitamin and drank water. And that's what he did for like 6 months. And he lost something like 300 pounds or something. But, you know, that's what it's there for. That's what it's there for. Yeah. But that would suck. That would not be fun. I could probably survive that, but I wouldn't be happy. I wouldn't be thrilled about the no nut, but I could still like go about my life pretty reasonably. A 30-day fast, I'm going to be in bed. I'm going to be in bed. After the first week, I'm not leaving bed. That's
as Nuno has
I
written it.
fasted for like 3 days before. And you don't feel good. You don't feel good at all. No, and it's beyond cranky. It's just like you don't feel good. So, do I want to do that for a month where I just feel like shit? Not really.
In his book, this is something that he'll have to live with until the end of his days.
Critical Thought says, I've done 10 days, and lost very little weight, actually. The first part is really just cleansing the colon. It might be different for women. Women do have a tougher time losing weight, and specifically, I mean, they're designed to hold on to that weight. Go for 30. Go for 30 days. And then see. And then make sure like you're alive at the end. You know how to stay alive. You've done it for years now. So, yeah, maybe try that. I find it hard to believe that you went 10 days and you lost very little weight. Unless you were already pretty lean. But women usually have a higher body fat count with them boobs and stuff. So, I don't know. Maybe it's different. Knobsdag says, Critical Thought, I'll cleanse your colon. Lovely. Lovely. Nice. Yeah. In 2014, he released a book detailing the incidents. Of course, I would do that too. Not a writer, but I would do that. Hey, and Pumasses.
This is the path that Geraldine
Big B Trucker
Walker would have taken into this valley, which you can see is just a vast wilderness. They are absolutely puzzled as to what may have happened.
Okay, what happens now?
There's where we just came off of. And there.
Women hikers are always make the worst decisions. Every time you watch like I Shouldn't Be Alive or one of those shows and it's like women specifically and there's no man, they always make the worst decisions. It's really, really hard to watch because they make terrible decisions. They don't ration their food. They don't ration their water. They put themselves in even more risk than like if they had not done that. It's crazy the decisions that women make when they're in a life or death situation. And it's like, are you trying to kill yourself? Are you trying to kill yourself? It's amazing. I have to watch more. I shouldn't be alive. because I'll show you those episodes where it's just women, and they make the dumbest decisions. The dumbest decisions. Why would you do that?
Where we're going?
The Appalachian Trail, or the AT as it's often known, is one of the
Critical Thought says you would want to break the fast under medical supervision to avoid refeeding syndrome. Yeah, of course. Yeah, otherwise you're just gonna vomit. You're gonna like eat the food and then you're immediately gonna vomit because your body can't handle it. You need to start very, very slowly. And at a certain point, you may still be alive, but you might be dying or basically dead anyway, right? Unless it's under medical supervision, there's really no way you can save yourself because your organs have shut down and stuff. Like you're starving. But that takes a while.
quintessential American hiking trails.
Baby Trucker
Lined
just
with a
says, just stay on the trail. Just stay on the trail. You're a trucker. So, yeah, you're like a specialist at staying on the road. Right? Not everybody. Are there a lot of female truckers? This is an honest question. Are there a lot of female truckers? Or is that a specifically male-dominated kind of profession? I would think it's mostly males, but I wouldn't doubt it if there is some females.
Plethora of sleepy red brick trail towns which tick along humbly amidst the immensity of the mountains and forests that surround them. The trail can be traced along a route of hand-painted directional signage and wooden camping huts built and maintained by its many volunteers.
Cool.
Less romanticised than its longer and wilder cousin, the Pacific Crest Trail, the AT offers a more navigable and user-friendly route that's marked by a strong sense of community and an abundance of what is referred to as trail magic. Just like the PCT, however, it has also acted as a sort of emotionally transformative liminal space where people come to live, laugh, love, and light any remaining notions that life is fair on fire. Media tropes aside, it's not exactly a bad plan, because clocking in at around 2,000 miles over 14 states, if you can't figure it out on the AT, then you are probably out of luck. More than 2,000 people will attempt to hike the trail in full each year.
This is the Appalachian Trail. I grew up near a entry point of the Pacific Crest Trail, like the mid entry point, right? Because it starts up in Canada and it goes all the way down to Mexico. I was thinking about doing it one time. Never manifested. And I mean, I knew people who did it, and like, you get thin and you constantly have to eat the entire time. And you're essentially homeless. You're just a hobo, right? So if you want to go be a hobo for like 6 months and like do the PCT, go for it. But it's just walking. You're just going to be walking, and then you're going to be super thin. Because you can't, I mean, even if you're eating good all the time, you're still just burning calories all day long. Every day, burning calories.
And as whimsical as I'm probably making it all sound,
If you fall, you die.
make no mistake, this trail is no joke, and it's not for the faint-hearted. But 66-year-old Jerry Largay, a retired
Knobstock says, I've done a few hundred miles on the AT. Really? Did you enjoy it?
army nurse who'd been preparing for months to tick this trail off her bucket list, wasn't the
Sick.
faint of heart.
I would do it. If me and Jess wanted to go on the trail, I'd be like, yeah, we have kids now, so we can't really do that. But when they get older and grow up, we might.
Her plan for tackling the Appalachian Trail was simple. She and her hiking partner would start on the 23rd of April in West Virginia. Her destination was Baxter State Park in Maine. Her husband George, also retired and not really one for the outdoors, would resupply the pair every few days. She was excited. This was a lifelong dream of hers, and she'd been updating her family and friends with her progress in preparing for the hike, writing in one email, an update from Inchworm and Sherpa. Trail names officially chosen. I've picked Inchworm as that's how I feel going up any ascent. No matter how well I feel I'm doing, I'm always humbled anew.
You're not supposed to pick your own trail name. Your trail name. We watched this on another documentary, but Your trail name is supposed to be given to you by other people on the trail. I mean, I guess you can pick it. Kind of ruins the spirit of it, though. You might be like, I'm Inchworm, and they're going to call you Longclit or something like that. Right? Oh, you mean Longclit? Yeah. I saw her a while back. Yeah. She's going to die.
On the ups. Sherpa is perfect for George, except he has a car, not a llama. She signed off all her emails with, all the best, Jerry the AT Dreamer.
Yeah, it sounds like you're going to die.
Reading through all the diary entries and letters and
Strawberry
emails
says, I've heard this story. I haven't heard this story, so I'm interested. Don't ruin it for me, Strawberry.
Left behind. I grew to...
Might have also been on Mr. Ballin. What does this guy do? Here, hold on. I gotta look through this. Oh, fuck. I have too many tabs and I X'd it out.
You like her.
So never mind.
Jerry was the kind of person that put other people at ease.
Hold on, it's still in here.
She was funny. And she wasn't afraid to look silly. To sing the wrong words at the top of her lungs, to stitch big clownish pockets on her shorts so she could hold more bird food on a research trip in the South Pacific. Those shorts looked so silly, remembered her best friend Betty.
I'll subscribe
Jerry
to him.
didn't care.
He's got almost 10 million
subs. If you got her closer
subs.
to the birds, then...
He's got almost 10 million subs, and I have seen him. He looks familiar. To bingeable scary stories. Okay. Stunning consequence. Child stars evil. All right, I like it. God, he's got a compendium, doesn't he? Must have been doing this for a long time. He makes money too. Yeah. Okay. All right. I'm into these. Okay, this is good. This is gonna, because this seems right up my alley. And, okay, maybe you guys might see some Mr. Ballin videos up on this show. Because this is what I do. I don't make anything. I just comment. I'm useless. I know.
So be it.
But here I am.
As many of the unlikely friendships she made on the trail would attest to, Jerry possessed
With
a streak
56
of
people
radical,
watching, hit the like button if you don't mind.
almost intransigent idealism that often took people aback. Even if you didn't really think you could be pals with a spry old gal approaching 70, she didn't really care. Jerry started on the assumption that you were interesting and worth the time, even if you didn't think you were.
Okay, I'm sorry, what? Assumption that you were interesting and worth the time, even if you didn't think you were. Okay, so...
I know what you're thinking. Everyone lit up a room, yada yada yada. But from what I've read, I can assure you, Jerry really did. That was, at least, until one rainy day in July, when she vanished.
Yeah, goodbye. Goodbye, Inchworm Longclit. You are among the forest. It's funny because it's really, like, it's very populated. The PCT goes, like, up in the woods, right? So there's nothing around. But, like, I would think the Appalachian Trail, there's, like, civilization not very far away. Well, that could be a bad assumption. It might go really deep into the woods. I have no idea. I've never looked at it. But I'd be willing to do it. Right? Knob, did you tell me how you liked it? I'm going to assume you liked it.
Up until that point, the hike had actually been going pretty well. Until the 29th of June, just 2 months after they'd begun, when Jerry's hiking partner Jane would be called away due to a family emergency.
I'll listen to Mr. Ballin. Strawberry says, I like a lot of Wondery podcasts. That's where I listen to Mr. Ballin. Yeah, I'll give him... I know I've seen a video, but the internet is vast, and there's a lot to dive into. So I'll give him a good old college try tonight, and I bet you I'll be able to dig up something I like, and it'll end up on the show. I guarantee you, in fact.
Perhaps Jerry should have just given up there.
I'm not going to guarantee you. but I bet you.
But that wasn't who she was, so determined, she made the decision alongside her husband George to carry on alone.
Knob says AT is very crowded in spots, however, where she was in Maine is pretty unpopulated. I've heard that about the Appalachian Trail. I've heard that.
And then, just like that, on Wednesday the 24th of July, about a month after Jane had left the hike and about 3 months after the hike had begun, Jerry failed to meet George at their pre-agreed resupply point. Initially, this wasn't a big deal since it's not unusual for hikers to get held up due to bad weather, for example, and it had been raining heavily. But when there was no sign of Jerry the next day, George understandably grew concerned, and that afternoon, he called the police. The searches began that day, and rescuers were initially confident. The statistics were on Jerry's side. 97% of those that go missing on the trail are found within 20.
Critical Thought says, I was recently invited on a 2-day hike with a group of preppers, which is cool, but like, I don't know if I want to go with strangers. Go. Go, Thought. Go. 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 Go.
24 hours
Go with those strangers you met online that like ask a lot of questions about the width of your neck, you know, and have a weird fascination with machetes and you know, have a lot of recipes that they keep sharing with you and asking about your ethnicity.
And multi-day searches are extraordinarily rare. But those 24 hours came and went, and there was no sign of Jerry.
Despite what we've heard, says a Critical Thought, take a gun. And I completely recommend that because they might have a problem with killing you. And if they're going to eat you, you want to be dead. So you want to do the job yourself. Go.
But it wasn't long before rescuers were able to narrow down the area of search.
She says, what the fuck?
First, there was a ping from Jerry's phone on Monday afternoon.
Recipes for
which was
long
about 7
pig,
miles as the crow flies from the area Jerry was supposed to meet George. Not exactly accurate due to the many, many miles between towers in that area, but it was something. However, it was also discovered that Jerry had spent the evening of Monday the 22nd of July with 3 female hikers.
Oh.
And they had the photo to prove it. Typical Jerry,
right,
she'd
right.
stayed up chatting
She's
with
a
them
girl.
and they'd all gotten on like a house on fire. So they remembered her well. Jerry was then supposed to have gone on to stay at a second
Oh, you mean long clit? Yeah. I hope she's okay.
lean-to on Tuesday before meeting George on Wednesday, but there was no evidence that she'd ever made it to that second lean-to. It wasn't exactly perfect intel, but it was enough. One of the largest search and rescue operations in the history of Maine was about to begin.
Rangers in aircraft, wardens, and volunteers on foot spent a second straight day searching a roughly 25 square mile section of the Appalachian Trail.
Over the next few weeks, the search significantly ramped up. Wardens, volunteers, K-9 units, and even Marines from a nearby military facility were now carrying out one of the largest searches in the history of Maine in some of the region's toughest and densest terrain.
Yeah,
They were
that's a
working
problem.
themselves to the bone to try and find Jerry. But the clock was ticking, and if Jerry was still out there, she was running out of supplies. Both media and the subsequent speculation around the case exploded. What if she'd been swept away by a river? Could there be foul play? Had anyone looked closely enough at her?
Plot says I'm always strapped, but that's not what I'm worried about. They're all nicer than me. Well, yeah, obviously. But, and I met you in person, and I know you smacked me. You smacked me. What do you carry, though? What kind of gun? I'm just curious. You don't have to answer. I know some people are a little bit touchy about the guns and you should be. You shouldn't post pictures of your weapons online. It's just not the smartest thing to do in the world, and you're just giving the government, you're just letting them know exactly what you have. Is that a law? Should you do that? Regardless, it doesn't matter. I wouldn't do that. You might get robbed or something.
Husband, George.
But you do have guns, so I mean, like, who's gonna rob you?
What if there was a killer on the loose? Are other hikers now in danger?
Knob's dog says she got walked off the trail and got lost like a tard. That's exactly what happened. She walked off the trail, probably saw like, ooh, look at that, a deer, and like went a little bit too far off the trail, trying to follow this deer. And then she was like, oh shit, I don't know how to get back to the trail. I'm in the middle of the woods. Nobody knows where I am. I might as well just keep walking in any direction, right? Just pick a direction and start walking. And she did that, and it was a bad idea. That's exactly what happened. I guarantee you that's what happened. I doubt a bear took her off the trail. But that's also a possibility.
Most missing person cases will inevitably attract a certain amount of interest.
Despite says, when and where is the Sulk called hiking camping trip? I was thinking about doing something like that. I'm not even kidding you. I was thinking about like renting out a campground, and then we could all like meet up there and like, you know, do weird cult orgy shit. All right? You know, some bonfires, and, you know, we could sacrifice somebody. Who? Knob would do. You're first, Knob. You're the first on the stone, right? We're going to open you up like a fish.
But with Jerry, the speculation felt unusually farcical. The tip line was quickly bombarded by an unusually high number of psychics and clairvoyants.
It would be in Florida.
Who, clearly not satisfied with mainlining the secrets of the universe in private, began inserting themselves into the investigation with suggestions of caves, nearby towers, bears, and of course, Bigfoot. Light comic relief for rescuers, perhaps, but mostly just an egregious waste of potentially life-saving human resource.
Social Observer says firearms are not arms. The Constitution does not say you have the right to bear firearms. They get us with words. Who gives a shit? Okay? Whatever. Arms is arms, right? Whether it's a sword or a gun or like a pipe bomb. I'm just kidding. Don't make pipe bombs. Anyways, yeah. They're all arms to me. And yeah, the government might not like that. But who fucking cares? Right? It's their job to follow the Constitution. It's not like our job to make them follow well, it kind of is to make them follow the Constitution. But if they're wrong and say they're not wrong, they're clearly wrong. They are clearly wrong. They were obviously talking about firearms. Everybody knew they were talking about firearms. That's like the thing. So whatever, they might be like, oh, well, they didn't say firearms. Fuck off. All right? It's not, I'm an American. I'm going to follow the Constitution, right? That's like the rules. We agreed that's the rules. That's the from the start, that was the rules. Okay? So you can't walk in and start doing all this infringement and say it's not infringement because it didn't have the word fire in it. All right? Arms is arms. They specifically used that term so you wouldn't be all bitches about it. And here we are 200 years later, and they're like, oh, you can't say that. Oh, and it doesn't mean arms. Oh, what about the school children? Oh, well, nobody think about the school children. Why didn't those kids have guns? Why not give every kid a gun? Why not? Why? Because you think your kid's going to kill himself? Well, I don't want to say good, but like one less.
In some instances, these tips had to be investigated.
Sometimes you don't need idiots, okay? Sometimes if a kid goes like, and it blows his brains out, then, you know, that kid was probably not going to do great in society anyway. He didn't know the basics of a gun. He didn't know that if you do this, click, 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 then your brains go and paint all that, right? He's not going to be like an engineer. He wasn't going to be the next president, all right? He couldn't figure out the basic workings of a gun. So, and if he was depressed, well, that's the parents' fault. or the school system's fault, right? The school system makes kids depressed, especially boys, because it's not set up for boys. It's set up for girls, right? They make you sit still and listen and then recite information that is completely useless. That is not how a male brain works, all right? We're good at figuring out problems. We're good at like attacking things. We like to organize. It's just a completely different dynamic, all right? So the school system is obviously set up to make boys miserable. It worked on me.
Just in case there was the remotest possibility that someone was secretly confessing to something. But, you know, big shocker here, so I hope you're sitting down. Not a single one of these tips turned out to be even remotely useful.
Ah, damn.
Weeks had now passed. The searches continued daily, and Jerry was still missing.
So far, searchers have still...
Critical Thought says, my first was a Glock 17. Everyone goes for the Glocks. Everyone goes for the Glocks. I still don't have one. Still don't have a Glock. One day I'll have one.
Found no sign of Geraldine Largay, while authorities continue to interview hikers, post flyers, probe for information on AT websites and blogs. They admit they're baffled. While they're not ready to announce any end date to the search, they reluctantly know it can't last forever.
After those first few weeks,
Social Observer says, why did they change the name of property to real estate? They changed names of stuff to create new laws that require licenses and privileges instead of God-given rights. I believe that. Yeah, lawyers are the main problem. The entire legal system is just, it's an engineered weapon against the people. And it only works if you obey it. What? It's true. Like, they put gun laws on people and, like, but for some reason, criminals run around with guns and stuff. Yeah, see, the legal system is a weapon used against people who obey the law. So what you should do is stop obeying the law. It's pretty simple. And honestly, I think the forefathers would give me the green check mark on that. I think they would be like, yeah, you get it. I do get it. I understand it completely. That entire law, that entire idea was put in there so that government wouldn't overstep their bounds. And here we are. Here we are. So what are we supposed to do? Just fucking stop. Just stop, right? You're not allowed to make stupid laws like that. And if you want to make a stupid law, I'm not going to follow it. There you go. They're going to make examples out of some people. They will. They absolutely will. But they can't make examples out of everyone. That's the thing. And if people get pissed off that somebody went to jail for something stupid like jaywalking or owning a gun that they shouldn't have, which is retarded, right? Then do something. Get loud. Start burning down cities like the liberals do when their guy doesn't win. But that's not why liberals burn down their cities. It's just because they're animals. And, you know, they're going to burn shit if they want to burn shit.
the mood changed. Rescuers knew the chances of finding Jerry alive were now very slim. Eventually, there was no choice but to drastically scale operations back. But to their absolute credit, volunteers and local rescuers never stopped searching for Jerry. As the
That's
winter
a lot of country. That's a lot of... And she could be anywhere, dude. And she would likely be at least partially eaten by wolves or bears or mountain lions or whatever you have around there.
2013 came and went, yet more searches were carried out. And then came 2014. More searches, more nothing. The conspiracy theories grew darker and more outlandish, including one local paper who asked, is it just a coincidence that the baffling vanishing of this person took place a stone's throw from a place closely associated with programs designed to make people disappear? The place he was referring to was the near...
SEER. SEER is search or search evasion rescue. I knew a guy who taught like SEER. It's for like Navy SEALs that like try to escape being captured and stuff.
by military training facility, and the answer to his question was an emphatic yes. since they had literally been involved in the rescue operations from day one. I can only imagine just how exhausting this non-stop speculation would have been for the family. They just wanted closure. And on Thursday, the 15th of October, 2015, 2 years after Jerry went missing, they would get it. Because that day, a surveyor happened across a sodden, collapsed tent. And they immediately knew who it was. In and around that tent would be a number of personal items, including a diary and a phone.
You had a phone?
Those items would tell a harrowing story. And to understand it in full, we need to go back to the beginning.
Oh, we don't have beginning time. We don't have beginning time. All right, I'll be quiet.
On Tuesday, the 22nd of July, 2013, after leaving the wooden lean-to where she'd had her photo taken, Jerry had walked off the trail to go to the bathroom.
Ha!
But a
You
little
should have
further than
pooped
she
on the
normally
trail. You should have pooped on the trail.
would, since she no longer had a hiking partner to watch out for her. She stood up, she walked confidently back to the trail, and the trail wasn't there. So she picked another direction. No trail, more forest. And just like that,
She was lost. That's it.
she was lost.
That's it. That's it. That's
Unable to
it.
get her
That's all
back.
it took. She just walked out for a second to go pee. And that was it, dude. It's over.
She began walking in what we can only assume she felt was the correct direction, but it was deeper still into the extremely dense and seemingly endless Maine forest. It was here that she sent a text.
Hey, look at that. Okay. I'll give you the bell. You want some bell? You want some bell action? There you go. Is that nice? Background noise for 20 bucks says cleaning my closet and just found this in a pair of pants. That's not how this works, but I appreciate that. Thank you very much. So what, you put the $20 bill into your computer and then it just lands in my chat?
But there was no service.
Okay.
At that point, her
Okay.
plan seemed
Thank
to be
you.
to get to higher ground to either get her bearings or to get signal, or probably both. Calm at first, but then panicked, Jerry exhausted herself, working her way through the undergrowth, becoming more and more lost. Eventually, she would find a small hill near a brook, and here she would send yet more messages. They would all fail to
I'm
send.
lost.
There was no phone service for miles.
Oh, go to the top of a hill.
It seems then that she decided enough was enough. No more moving. It was time to set up camp and wait for help to arrive. That was, after all, the general advice that hikers are given. If you get lost, stay put. So she did. It's hard to know what was going through Jerry's head at this point, but the incident report indicates that she did make multiple attempts to try and draw rescuers to her location. She set up her emergency space blanket so that it would catch the sun. She set trees on fire, and the diary that she kept, which consisted mostly of personal messages, also indicated
Oh.
that she had attempted to...
Oh, another bell scenario. There we go. Hold on. Give me the bell. There we go. Thank you. It's only $2, but I'll do it anyway. Before I buy your shirt, are they soft style or hard cotton? I don't know. I have one. They feel fine to me. I don't think they're like soft stuff. I think they're hard cotton. But Thought might be able to tell you better, because my wife bought one. I didn't buy one for myself, but I do have one coming for. I think they're hard cotton though. I think that, but I'm not
use
sure.
her sweater to attract attention, but it was all in vain. This is where Jerry had made her camp. It was some of the most difficult terrain in the area. She saw the planes flying overhead, but they couldn't see her. The terrain was so poor, in fact.
Background says, I think there are fabric options on some of the shirts. Yes. But I think I make them in a certain way. Hold on. You know what? Let me just look. Let me just look. So let's pick this one. Here, I'll take you with me. Boop. This is the one that Despite made. It's very cool. It doesn't say size and fabric info. Classic unisex tee is a standard fit t-shirt, typically made of 100% cotton. This heavyweight tee has a soft and traditional feel. How's that? Does that work? Did that work for you? I think that works. I think that's the information that we required. That was the wrong button. Why I do that? There we go.
Fact that even highly experienced sniffer dogs couldn't pick up her scent, but there were times when they got so close, by some estimates as close as 200 meters.
That's depressing. And what is also depressing is we're like out of time. But, you know, check out the shirts. Check out all. Hold on, let me play some Boogie. There we go. There we go. Let's crank that up a little bit. Check out all the lovely shirts on Bonfire. For the Sulkstream store, we have the All-Seeing Eye. We have the Yeti Abduction. That's very nice. We have Space Potato. If you like all your potato needs to be spacey. Space Potato is a lovely shirt. We have the Self-Delete. I don't know if anyone's actually bought that one. But the Sulkster one seems to be fairly popular. It's simple. It's rustic. It's unique. The Sulkmania shirts, I like that one. That's pretty cool. These are by Critical Thought. The Eat the Slop and the It's Not a Sex Cult t-shirt is probably one of my best sellers. Yes, with a grand total of 3 sold. So it's going gangbusters. I don't sell many, and I honestly don't make much money off of them. But I just like the idea that people are out there wearing shirts that not I specifically made, but you guys made. And I really appreciate you guys chipping in and helping in all the ways that you help on the Sulkstream. You guys are making the show, so I really appreciate that. Anyways, to you people out there, I hope you enjoyed tonight's episode of the Sulkstream. It was a doozy. It was depressing, but that's the Sulkstream for you. And now we have this nice 70s boogie music. Doesn't matter. I hope you guys have a great night. I hope you guys stay strong and stay beautiful and just be the best dang cult members you can be. Because you know, I'm here for you. Hit me on X, @SulkTheWhite. Also follow my @Sulkstream OFF account. It's @Sulkstream Official, but the official is abbreviated, so it's just @Sulkstream OFF. And then you can watch these lovely shows on X. Also on YouTube, but nobody messes with YouTube. But if you want to see some extra editing and stuff like that, Ardenshire does a lot of the editing and he puts it on YouTube. So if you want a little extra content, go on over to YouTube, subscribe to my account over there, and you'll get some extras put together by Ardenshire. And honestly, they're really cool. They're really cool, and I like watching them. And yeah. So I hope you guys have a great night. And do all those things that make me proud of you. I know you will. I know you will. I have great faith in you. I really do. And I'll be here tomorrow at the same time, same place, doing Daywave tomorrow. You know the schedule. You know the schedule. So until then, I hope you guys have a great night. Stay strong. Stay beautiful. Drink a lot of water. Get a good night's sleep. And take care of yourselves, because I care about you too. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Love you. Good night.
I'm an incredible soul, unhinged and enraged.
Hit the like button.
I'm spitting fire, burning through these trees, questioning the world, unraveling conspiracies. Talking about Bigfoot, but that's monster too. Government lies, they're feeding me their goo. I'm diving deep into this rabbit hole, uncovering unraveling the madness with every word I spoke.